Welcome to the Sunflower Conversations. I am your host, Chantal. And joining me today is the United Ostomy Association of America, Keely Wells, and Patient Advisory Board Chairperson, Nate Hadlock. Welcome to you both. So let's start by understanding the language. So, Nate, could I come to you? We've got different terms, and I think if we could just understand these before we go further into the conversation, it would help our audience. So we've got ostomy and ostomate, and then there's stoma, then there's continent diversion, and there's urostomy, colostomy, and ileostomy. So if we could start with ostomy and ostomate, please.
Sure. So an ostomy, and these days that's just used as a general term that encapsulates, having an ostomy bag or a pouch and having a stoma. And, in this community, we just kind of use that word freely to say, yes, I have an ostomy, and that's everything involved. But an ostomy surgery is, it's a surgical procedure where, due to lots of different reasons, your either GI tract or urinary tract needs to be diverted. And so that's brought out through your abdominal wall to where you go to the bathroom in a pouch on your stomach. And then an
Thank you.
ostomate is
Yep,
just someone who has gone through that procedure.
that's great. And then you mentioned stoma when you were talking about that. So if you could clarify, what exactly is a stoma?
Yes, so the stoma is the actual part of your intestine or urinary tract that is brought out of your abdominal wall, that sticks out of your belly, and that is usually, stitched into place so that it's secure. So that's actually the pinkish intestine that is sticking out of your belly that has output either stool or urine that goes into an ostomy bag or
Thank you.
pouch. I'm not sure which term you'd prefer me to use, and it's debated in the community, but I prefer to say ostomy bag, but there are plenty who say stoma bag or stoma pouch or ostomy pouch, but so if I
Okay.
get caught saying something different, it's just out of habit.
That's absolutely fine because it's whatever term you're comfortable with because you have it and so therefore you describe it and define it in the words the language that you're comfortable with. This is a podcast which goes out globally, so there will be differentiations, in some of the language that we use. So we just ask people to be patient with us and know that we're coming from a place of well-meaning and we're trying to just inform and educate so that to give everybody a broader understanding. So don't worry about that. Continent diversion.
So continent diversion, and this is actually something that I lived with before I had my ostomy, and that's just where it's a different option where they can find where surgeons find a solution internally where you don't necessarily need to have a stoma or an ostomy bag, and they're able to create, some kind of a just a diversion of your intestine or urinary tract, and they create sometimes what's most commonly used is what's called a J pouch, and it's like a little reserve made of your intestines inside of your body. But technically you're still like completely hooked up with all of your intestines all the way through your GI system. So you don't actually have the stoma or the ostomy pouch, and you still have a not a completely full function because clearly something medically wasn't properly working, but you do still go to the bathroom. You have use of your rectum and everything, and like that. So
Thank you, because that was a new one to me that I hadn't heard of. And then we've got, I don't know if Keely, if you want to answer these ones, we've got urostomy, colostomy, and ileostomy. Are you able to explain the differences between those three terms?
I will do my very best. So I can start with an ileostomy. I have a ileostomy. I've had it for coming up to probably 10 years now. I had a lot of issues with my large colon. So to divert that, they gave me a end ileostomy. So I have a permanent ileostomy. And that is where the you just have your small intestine. And then with a colostomy, that is where you still have your large intestine, and then that is where you have then the stoma through your abdominal wall. So yeah, ileostomy, small intestine, colostomy, large intestine, and then urostomy, I believe, is the diversion of urine from the kidneys after the removal of the bladder. But Nate, please jump in because I think I did a horrible job.
No, that's exactly right. And
Great.
I have a permanent ileostomy as well. And
Okay.
before that, for I actually needed a stoma and an ostomy when I was born because of birth defects. And then they reversed that to give me a continent diversion and a J pouch. And I had that for about 20 years. And then that failed. So then I had to get another ileostomy. And that's what I live with permanently now. So, and
And
those
I'll
terms were defined perfectly. Those were great.
love it. And I'll throw in maybe one more, a loop ileostomy. So I originally, similar to you, Nate, I actually had a few different surgeries prior to ending up with this one. And I had it originally, they gave me a loop ileostomy because they thought it was going to be temporary. But then I had so many different complications because I was still having issues with my large intestine. Um, yeah, but now have an end ileostomy.
Likewise, same here.
Well, it's absolutely fascinating. And Nate, you said you were born with issues with your intestine. If this has been going on since you were
Correct.
small. So, what are some of the reasons that an individual might require a stoma?
In my experience and what I see most commonly, the reasons are from different types of cancers, different types of, inflammatory bowel disease, diverticulitis, different forms of incontinence. So there are multiple illnesses that can lead to needing an ostomy. And then, like me, I have met a few people who needed one because of just different birth defects. I always I always joke that I was just born with bad plumbing, and that they just kind of had to fix the pipes a little bit because I didn't need mine because of any sort of illness. Um, and then there are quite a few cases as well of people who have just had some kind of abdominal or pelvic trauma, like an injury or an accident or something like that, what and not all of their intestines are able to be saved or something like that. So then they need this life-saving surgery.
Thank you for explaining that because I think that maybe some people perceive that it's the elderly who have these who are ostomates and don't realize the full extent and how many different reasons that an individual might have that surgery so that I mean it's life-saving, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And so it's serious and I think that that's something that we really want to kind of like bring home into this podcast really and this recording is that this is a very serious life-saving surgery. And what we want to do is sort of dispel some of the myths around it so that everybody feels included and doesn't feel embarrassed or ashamed and no stigma attached to having an ostomy.
Well, I just recently there was a man that I was talking to, and he was asking questions about speaking about his ostomy, and he was a little worried about being open with it or how do I talk about these things. And I just tried to help build some confidence with him, like this saved your life. So talk
Mhm.
about it like something that saved your life, and you don't have to be worried about it. You don't have to be ashamed or embarrassed about it. Just if someone else were walking down the street or another friend of yours had something else happen to them and it was a little bit more culturally acceptable, like something with their hand or whatever, and it saved their life, they would openly speak about it. So go ahead and speak about your ostomy like it's the wonderful life-saving thing that it is. And I feel like that mindset also helps you to adjust to this life because sometimes you can feel like you've got a brand new body. It's just important to help people to realize that it is life-saving, that anyone of any age can have it, and we're all just going through this together and trying to figure it out.
There's a
Yeah.
charity in Ireland called Crohn's and Colitis. I'm sure you probably have a similar organization in the States. And they have a campaign called the Poo Taboo. because we don't talk about poo. But actually, we need to, so we know what's healthy and what's not healthy and when to take action. And I think that just leads into what you're talking about there, Nate, you know.
Yeah, I
Um,
really like the that perspective to of like yeah, it's life-saving. It absolutely is life-saving. And Chantel, what you mentioned around the stigma too of it's only for older people. I remember when I first had surgery, I was kind of at the age where I was bouncing between the children's ward and the gastro ward. And I do remember being on the gastro ward for a very, very long time with a lot of elderly people and feeling very isolated, but also feeling so welcomed because they were the kindest people I've ever met in my entire life. But it was only when I opened social media and I shared a tiny bit about my journey on social media that I was just flooded with supportive comments and amazing, empowering pictures of these young women in their bikinis on holiday proudly with their ostomies. They were decorating them, putting stickers on them, and I've just never felt so seen. And it was only then that I was like, I think it's going to be okay.